If you've ever had any problems getting the proper spray pattern, this is one video you want to watch. I'm going to show you how to get rid of tailing and get a proper spray pattern with your airless spray gun, so stay tuned for this video. So this is Chris, the Idaho Painter, here on Paint Live TV. Today I'm going to talk about airless spraying and getting the proper spray pattern, how to eliminate tailings, getting a nice good fan width. We're not going to be talking about spits today. I do have another video that will talk about spits. Spits is something you're always going to get if you have gun extensions, but we're going to try to get you to get a proper spray pattern, have nice feathered edges, and going to give you some tips and tricks on how to go about doing that. Today I'm running a Titan 440. This is the Titan 440 Impact, and we're going to be running it multiple pressures because usually getting the proper spray pattern on your spray gun or from your spray tip is typically related to pressure almost probably 90% of the time. I'm going to be running multiple tips, so we're going to show you different spray patterns with multiple tips. I'm going to be running only one product because a lot of these issues also you can have from product to product. It's going to be different. I can get a proper spray pattern with one product, switch products, and it's going to be a little bit different, and I might have to go ahead and adjust the pressure. The Titan 440 Impact doesn't have a digital pressure readout. I do have a Titan HEA gauge set up right there, so I know what the pressure at my pump is. It's really ideal to know what the pressure at your gun is, but that you would have to run, say, like an HEA gauge at the gun, and it does get in the way if you're new to spraying. Once you get it dialed in and you know exactly what PSI to spray with, you typically don't need a gauge anymore. But if you're new, it's really good, very helpful to have a gauge at the gun. So now I'm gonna set this thing up. I got it set up, and we're gonna show you, I'm gonna start spraying right here with the pressure too low, and then we're gonna show you as I adjust the pressure, what happens to the spray pattern. All right, so I've done some testing right now. I'm just gonna roll my paper now, get a fresh sheet of paper right here, and this tip is typically wants to run at higher pressures. It's a high production tip. I have the pressure set at, it's all the way down below the HEA mark, so it's really extremely low. It's at around, it looks like about 700 PSI. So I'll spray that, and that would probably be, that's almost good for say a Titan HEA tip, but this is a regular high production tip. So now I just sprayed, and you can see I've got fingering right here, and that fingering is more than likely related to a lack of pressure. You know, I'm gonna just turn this up. I've got it up to past 1,000 PSI right now, and I'm gonna just spray. It's looking a little bit better, so now we can compare these two. I'm starting to get it filled up in the middle right here. The fingering is starting to go away, and that is completely related to air pressure. There's more pressure coming out of the gun. I'm gonna turn it up to, I've got now probably around 1,500 PSI. I'll spray it one more time here. So now that is looking really good. I'm getting enough pressure to put out enough paint to get a nice even pattern. The tailing is still almost eliminated. Now, I want to say, don't get frustrated if you're spraying with high production tips, because sometimes you can't completely eliminate tailing. We'll show you a tip later on here that will give you an amazing feathered edge, and that's all related to tip. But that's looking pretty good. I can turn the pressure up. I can continue to turn the pressure up all the way up to say, I think this thing will run up to 3,200 PSI. But now what you're doing is you may get a better feathered edge, but you're gonna get a whole lot of kickback, a whole lot of fallout, and a whole lot of overspray. So that's kind of like the trade-off. I'm gonna bump it up to, because I've been known to, you know, with sprayers that have digital readouts, just to always set it at 2,200 PSI and just run everything at 2,200. I'm gonna bump it up to about 20, that's about 2,200, and that's at the pump, that's not at the gun. So here we go. Now I'm gonna spray one more time here. I am really liking that a lot. So, and that's what I typically run when I'm spraying production tips, 2,200 PSI. I'm satisfied with that. I don't think I'm gonna go up any higher than that. And I know somebody's gonna be curious about the lime green gun whip. It makes this section of the hose a lot more flexible. If you just hook the regular hose to the gun, This banding, which is typically on all regular hoses, makes it less flexible, makes it harder to move, get in and out of tight spaces, causes a lot more gun fatigue. And the lime green hose whips are my own custom spec'd out hose whips that's got a ley line on it that says the Idaho Painter right on it, a Paint Life product. So if you want one of our custom hose whips, go check out our store at my website, theidahopainter.com or store.theidahopainter.com, where you can get our really cool shirts, hats, and a lot of the tools and accessories that I keep in my vehicles. I'm gonna switch this thing over to a Titan HEA tip. I got my bucket of tips right here. If you've never seen one of these things, this is a tip saver right here, this bucket, and these things are pretty amazing. It organizes your tips, keeps them down. I got just about that much paint thinner that my tips sit in so they don't dry out. That's now at about 1,500 PSI, and I've got, I think I got 100 feet of hose right here, so it's probably dropping down to about 1,000 PSI at the gun, which is typically what an HEA tip should be run at. And so the benefits of that is less overspray, less kickback, and less fallout. So here we go. So I'm getting a fairly good feathered edge right here. It's filling in pretty nicely, but I still think that I want my edge to be a little bit more feathered. And this is, once again, this is a 311 tip. And so these tips are just a little bit harder to dial in. You would typically use something like this to maybe spray some trim or something if you wanted to control overspray. So we're looking, we just got some fingering right there, and we're running, at about, let me see if so it was dropping down to the top of the green. I'll bump it up just a little bit more. Now right there, it's looking pretty nice for a 311 tip. Here we go. So now you can start to see that is nice and feathered for a 311 tip. Got a nice feathered edge right here. It's all filled in. And now I'm running, that's gonna be at the pump, it's 2,000 PSI, but it's dropping down to around 1,500 to 1,300 PSI at the gun. Here's a 515 Titan HEA tip. And we'll show you what this one looks like now. We'll see if we can get this one adjusted to, so that's a lot more paint coming out there. So you can see this one, typically the Titan HEA tips like to run around 800 to 1,000 PSI, but I had to bump that up to a little bit more than what would be standard, but I finally got the proper spray pattern. I just sprayed this real quick with a 515. It sounded really loud. It sounded like it threw a lot of overspray out here on the edges. So I know my pressure is probably up too high for an HEA tip. I'm gonna drop that down. So now I'm like at the HEA range, which is the top of the green gauge. So let me spray right here. So now look at that nice feathered edge right there. The pressure sounded a little bit low. I can stand to bump it up just to the top of the range right there, and we'll see how that looks. I got a really good feathered edge, no fingering at all. Do it one more time here. Now look at that. See that nice feathered edge right there? And I'm running at the pump, I'm running at 1,100 PSI. So now compared to the high production tip, 1,100 compared to 2,200. So I'm gonna create a lot less fallout, a lot less dust in the air, and yet I have these really, really nice feathered edges. So one where that is gonna really come into play is on a ceiling, because when I showed you those edges, the fingers that will actually build up paint a lot heavier, that fingering on a ceiling is gonna show really bad. You're gonna see it as striping all over the ceiling. I'll show you one more time. That one compared to right here. Nice crisp edge, but we got some fingering, some heavy spots on a ceiling that's gonna show really bad. So this pattern, really nice for a ceiling and then also on a fence. If I'm spraying a fence on the outside, I can drop it all the way down to 1100 PSI, which is gonna be about 900 at the gun. And I've got a nice spray pattern, low overspray. You could have a clogged filter. That means you're gonna have to crank your pressure up really, really high. If you crank it up too high, you're all the way up full pressure. You're still getting fingering. This gun filter could be clogged, and I've seen it's happened to me in the past. It's so clogged, it's trying to push the paint through. It splits the gun filter right open, ruins your gun filter. So be careful with that. You don't want to ruin the gun filter because they'll really last almost a lifetime if you clean them every day. The same with the manifold filter. And then depending on products, for another video, filter size, you could have too small of a filter that could be causing pressure issues at the gun. I'm typically almost 99% of the time running a 100 mesh filter on the gun and usually around an 80 mesh filter, 60 to 80 on the manifold filter right there. I want more things to slip through the manifold filter, get to the gun, and the gun to catch the rest. But if you strain your paints, which you should always do, straining the paints is gonna eliminate that. But clean your gun filters and your manifold filter on your pump. There's always gonna be a manifold filter. Clean that, make sure it's clean. We didn't used to strain our paints ever. I went probably 15 years without straining paints. Now I know one of the major manufacturers out there, one of the largest companies in the world that we purchase our paint from, we never strained it. Now we have to strain all the paint. It's extremely dirty, and I'm not sure why, but it has to be strained. Another thing, if all that is said and done, you could run into some other issues. You could be having a lack of pressure at the gun related to your packings. Now, this is a lot more difficult to diagnose, but your packings, you could be losing pressure because your packings are bad. This is a brand new pump, so I know that's not gonna be an issue. If your pump is 5 years old, it's been used quite a bit, you could be losing pressure because of the packings. Depending on how much it's used, you gotta repack your packings. And the piston, there's all these little sleeves on the piston. That is what keeps the pressure built up inside there. They wear out. Even the piston that itself could be scored and causing issues, and you may have to just repack the pump or repair the pump. So here's another thing that I run into too, and this is something we'll bring up right here, and this is called your rock guard right here, or rock filter. And this has happened to me, many times in the past. If the paints weren't strained, you could get like a big old glob of paint or skim coat of paint that's dropped off the top of the can itself or the 5-gallon bucket into the paint, and it will wrap around this, or the paint is so dirty, this gets clogged. We even get these things to the point that there's just so much dried paint around it, you only got a couple of exposed holes that could take in paint. That's gonna cause a severe drop in pressure too also. So make sure there's nothing wrapped around this, and make sure your rock filter is nice and clean and has at least 50% of the filter itself exposed so paint can come through it. And then last but not least, it's been very rare, but there's been a few times in my career I've actually had a bad tip, and I went through all my troubleshooting steps and I could not get a proper spray pattern, and I finally questioned the tip. It was a brand new tip. I switched the tip and all of a sudden it just started spraying. But I've run into a few paints in my career too. One of them was Super Paint, Sherwin-Williams Super Paint, the Ultra Deep Base Super Paint, and then their oil-based Quick Dry Primer. Once they tinted the Quick Dry Primer, you could not get it to spray through a tip and get a proper spray pattern. It was spitting all the time. Same with the Ultra Deep Base. When it was coming through the gun and coming through the tip, both of them were coagulating really bad bad and really fast at the tip, and you had to keep clearing the tip, and is giving very erratic spray patterns. So every now and then in your career, not every single paint out there has been designed to spray. Not a lot of them, especially in other parts of the world. I know over in Australia, I've been over there to teach, and the majority of the paints are not designed to spray. They're designed to brush and roll. So a lot of issues you can run into are related to that, and I know that's why, you know, in Europe and Australia and stuff, they're very accustomed to water down their paints to get it to spray properly, because they were not designed to spray properly. I don't ever water my paints down, because all the paints that I spray are actually designed to spray and not brush and roll specifically. So there you have it, some quick tips on how to get a proper spray pattern when using an airless sprayer. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, that way you get notified next time we come out with our next video. It's free, easy to do. Just hit it, slam it, pound it. Just do whatever it takes just to click that little thing on your video screen. Also, you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook, where we got other really quick, short tips and tricks. Instagram is Idaho Painter, Facebook is The Idaho Painter, and also check out our store at store.theidahopainter.com, where you get our shirts, hats, even our airless accessories, our gun extensions, and other really cool tools, game-changing tools that we use in our vehicles. And like we always say, hopefully we'll see you on our next video. Out.